You are listening to the Global CTE Podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Global CTE Podcast. I am Sylvester Chisom, your host, and I just want to let you know we created this podcast to wrap a blanket of goodwill around the CTE community to support our students in being successful in the global marketplace. On this podcast, it is our desire to elevate and highlight the best voices, the brightest voices, the people who are really doing the work, and today is no different. I have my good friend Stephanie Short here from America Succeeds. Now, let me tell you about Stephanie. She's the Vice President of Partnerships at America Succeeds, where she leads America Succeeds corporate and philanthropic partnerships in their mission to expand and elevate the business voice for improving education systems and student outcomes across the country. Stephanie oversees fundraising, communications, and national initiatives to support the organization's goal, strategic vision, and growing network of state-level policy and advocacy partners. She also serves on the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce Young Professionals Board and on the CAPS Network Advisory. Now, about America Succeeds. America Succeeds is a 501c3 nonprofit education advocacy organization that is committed to engaging business in modernizing education systems to drive equity and opportunity. And my favorite part, they are also the ones who have coined the phrase durable skills to reflect the most requested skills from over 80 million job postings. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Sylvester, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
I don't know. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you. You and I we were just talking briefly beforehand, and the conversation it just continues to go and go about like, hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this. So I was like, hey, let's pause here so we can get this thing recorded. A little backstory. I do want to say thank you to our friends at the CAPS Network, Corey, and the crew for actually being the one to introduce us. I know you invited me to speak on your panel at the CAPS Summer Huddle, and I really enjoyed that experience talking about durable skills.
Yeah, as always, shout out to CAPS. Right. Corey and the team are incredible. They do great work, and it's always through CAPS that I meet incredible people like you. And so really excited to dig into the conversation. I think there's a lot of alignment across all of our work.
Yes, definitely. Okay, let's jump right into it. So we hear this soft skills, 21st century skills. I'm a fan of what you all created, durable skills. So what are durable skills for those who may not know?
We define durable skills as how you use what you know and how you show up in the world. So skills like communication, critical thinking, collaboration, leadership, resilience, and my favorite, very academic term, metacognition, that business leaders don't use, but things like your adaptability and time management. You have also heard these skills called many other names, as you mentioned. So our least favorite, soft skills, but 21st century skills, human skills, essential skills, transferable skills. And we call them durable skills because we believe these are the skills that last. They go with you from job to job throughout your entire lifetime. So no matter how technology changes or the world changes, these are things that will help you be effective in finding your own meaningful, fulfilling pathway.
I love how you frame that. Let's take it back to the origin of the term and the analysis of like the jobs. Like talk a little about that, because I found that so interesting.
Of course. Well, I will say first, while America Succeeds coined the term durable skills, we really owe that to a wonderful communications consultant because we were calling them skills that last. And he was like, oh, you mean durable skills? Oh, we do mean durable skills. That's such a better name.
Yes, what you said.
Yeah. So, and it's really taken off, which we love. So we got here I'll actually back up just a little bit. In
Okay.
2017, we released a report called Age of Agility. We were talking all about the future of work and how the world was changing, and how if we were asking learners and workers to be agile, the education system should also be agile. And we were making really great progress on some of that large scale systems change until the pandemic, when understandably, we went mostly to emergency remote learning. We didn't know where kids were, food and housing insecurity, all of the things that we were confronted with at that time. We really wanted to take a step back and think about how can we best kind of pivot our work and focus on what's most important for kids coming out of this experience. And that's what got us to these durable skills, which we have always heard from business leaders are critical to success, regardless of your role. So we went to all of our industry association partners in DC and we said, hey, does this list of skills matter for your industry? And the construction industry and the Human Resources Association and the US Chamber and Americans for the Arts and Associated Builders and Contractors and all of these folks said, yes, absolutely, these matter. And so we went to Lightcast, which used to be called MC Burning Glass, and worked with their team to develop this framework, the wheel that many people have seen. So we have 10 competency buckets, which came from crosswalking all of the existing frameworks for the synonyms that I had mentioned.
Right.
And then using the MC database, we identified 10 job postings keyword terms for each of those competencies. And we ran the wheel through the 80 million plus job postings using a very fancy machine learning algorithm, and got what you mentioned at the beginning of the show, which was that 7 out of 10 of the top requested skills in job postings are durable skills. The durable skills are requested more than 4 times as often as the top 5 hard or technical skills. And we saw durable skills show up in every industry, occupation, geography, and there's all sorts of different layers. If you look at educational attainment, if you look at jobs aligned with the future of work, durable skills are really key to what employers are looking for and what learners need to be successful.
Wow. That is very powerful and so insightful. I'm a firm believer that education should reflect the needs of work, right? Like of industry, of like what is needed for for companies to be successful, for the economy to be successful, and in turn everyone wins in that way. So I'm curious, I want to push a little, like, how are you seeing these skills best taught? Like when we take it down, like from the macro to the micro level, like now we're in the classroom, like what is the best way to teach these durable skills?
I'll start that in full transparency, I do not have the best answers,
Okay.
nor am I a teacher. My mom was a teacher. My aunt is a teacher. I have never been in a classroom.
Well, what are you saying? What are you saying that's working? How about that? Like,
Yeah,
what
for
are you
sure.
saying that's working? Like, give me an example of somebody who you feel like, oh, wow, they're really doing a great job in Iowa or in, this place or whatever. Go ahead.
So Iowa is, shout out to the Iowa CAPS group that's up there. They're doing incredible work. I would say the best examples that we see in, certainly at the secondary education level, are baked in quality CTE programs and quality sort of project and place-based experiences. So when you think about the types of classroom experiences that are really authentic, like I think about our friend Tremaine from Maritime High School. You can shout out.
I was just gonna bring him up
Yeah.
when you said that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think about Tremaine. I think about, folks in the Big Picture Learning Network. When you just think about innovators in education who are really focused on connecting students to authentic learning experiences and letting them drive what that looks like, that's where durable skills are best cultivated. In a lot of conversations, it has come up, and it's fair feedback, that many say something's missing from the wheel, and that at the very center of the wheel should be this idea of student agency. And I wholeheartedly agree with that feedback. And the way we think about it now is that durable skills are how students demonstrate their agency, but it's also in the acquisition of durable skills that students start to really build that agency. And when you combine that agency and durable skills and also a bit of a mix of interest and aptitude, that's the sort of kid that we can't stop. And that's the sort of kid that I absolutely don't worry about in the future, regardless of whatever pandemics or technical changes or disruptions that we might face.
I totally love that you linked the student agency component with the durable skills. That's so important, especially as we think about like student agency, the durable skills. But you're making me think about how do you see the relationship between durable skills and like equity in education?
So when I think about the world that I want to see, and I like put on my hopeful hat, it's that every student has the opportunity to meaningfully cultivate durable skills and then leverage those to build a life that they want in the future. Mm-hmm. Taking off that hat and recognizing the world that we are in today, that is very much not the case. So we know that there is a huge equity gap in terms of who has access to things like extracurricular activities and summer camps and sports teams, or their family might be super engaged in the community, or they're learning these from their parents or, their near peers, their church. Not every student has access to that, which is the prime place that students are learning durable skills today. So our ultimate goal is to try and unpack and understand how we can bring durable skills into a more traditional classroom. Because until we get to a place where every kid has exposure to durable skills, we're not going to ultimately have the outcomes that we want around equity. And that's the part where I know it is a lot easier said than done, and we don't have a ton of great examples at the moment.
Yeah, so when we were first introduced, like, and you started telling me more about the durable skills and the different things, I immediately thought about the program that I helped co-found, the Show Me the World project, where we use it's like a fusion of STEM and entrepreneurship together, right? But then we dangle this little carrot out here of saying, we're also going to Costa Rica, as long as you do all the assignments, the workshops, but it's so experience-based. And we wonder sometimes, like, when we reflect on it, it's like, well, why these kids, one, who come from challenging backgrounds, let's start there. So the resilience is already baked in, but it's like, how do you transfer that resilience into persisting towards something you care about, a goal, a desire, a career? Experience is such a great teacher, like you said, and I think we need the classroom to shift to more project-based activities, more outside of the four walls of the school, to create those learning experiences. And it just like, then it naturally happens where you have to communicate. If, for instance, it's like Tremaine and his kids and they're out on the port of Seattle, you have to learn how to communicate and work in teams there, right? If you want to be successful.
I think for me, so much of it is about expanding possibilities, right? Like we are so confined, all of us, to kind of what we know. And so it is such a transformational experience to see a different possibility that you didn't know existed and know that you can be there. And oftentimes then it's the starting, the kind of like fake it till you make it. It's like, oh, I can be here. And then it's like, oh, I can really thrive here, which is, it's what's so beautiful about what Tremaine is doing. It's what struck me, one of my favorite stories, Ed Hidalgo from Cajon Valley Union School District in San Diego, really incredible K-8 district, but was a longtime Qualcomm executive. And they brought a group of students in from the local middle school who had literally grown up in the shadows of Qualcomm. And all they knew about the company was that their name was on the stadium. And none of them had ever been inside the building, met anyone that worked there, or understood the incredible possibilities of what it would be like to work for a global company like Qualcomm that was right there in their backyard. And so that to me is kind of the spark, right? Like you need that spark of possibility that gets a student interested. And then if they're in an environment where they can develop their agency, they can develop durable skills, they have the opportunity to pick a project that's meaningful to them. Right now we're setting them up to solve problems and the problems in the future rather than just setting them up for a job that may or may not be a job by the time they graduate high school.
Yeah. And I think that's so important when you personalize, like what you said, when you personalize it, especially through problem solving, right? And it's like, what's a problem you care about in the world? How would you go about solving it? How about this? Why don't you, or let's organize a few of you together and you collaborate on solving this problem. And then like naturally these durable skills seem to come out. Like you have to collaborate, you have to persist, like all these different things. That's where I see it reflected best. And I've had this conversation since you and I first connected with, like I was talking to one of my principals in South Dakota, and he was all about it. He was like, no, we're getting our kids outside of the classroom, the welding program, they're going to visit these companies to see what a professional in this field or industry, what they do, what their life is like. And I really do believe, like, it's like what you see, you believe you can be. And then we've personalized, and then you can teach from that. I won't pull out something here. You said one of the durable skills, because you must have read my questions, because I was going to ask you, what's your favorite durable skill and why?
It's funny, only because we were literally joking about this in the office yesterday of like, we should make t-shirts that say, I have good fill in the blank. Then on the backside that say, but I am still working on fill in the blank. I would say for me, likely my two favorite are communication, but I'm biased because that was my kind of professional background. I like identify a lot as a storyteller. That's a big part of my job. And so that one is probably my favorite.
Okay.
I think we can always be working. I would say if there's one that I'm still probably really working on, thoughtfully, intentionally working on, is the leadership component. Like leadership is really hard. It's something as I've gotten further in my career, I have gotten a lot of coaching and networking and read books, and like you're never done kind of flexing that muscle. I think that's my like, here's one that I'm working on. What about you?
Okay, so before I share mine, I want to push on that just to see if we can pull some insights out. So you have acknowledged leadership is one you want to develop and a skill you want to improve and grow. So give me some tactically, like, what are you doing to improve as a leader?
It's a great question. Listening more and talking less.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you go through this pretty critical transition point. A lot of people go through a transition point in their career where you're in a lot of rooms because you're the expert at something. And so you're expected to have all the answers. But then, or certainly a lot of the answers, right?
Yes.
And then you get to this place, especially when you work in a more uncertain space of how do I not necessarily have the answer or drive the ship, but set up the problem and let my team bring forth their best ideas? Like, how do I create space for others to really flourish where I'm not dictating, but really letting the best strengths and diversity and perspectives of my team come to light in a meaningful way? And I'm still working on that.
That is a forever refinement.
Yeah.
I'll give you one in alignment with that. A story that one of my good friends was telling me. I believe it's a fable. If it has an animal in it, it's a fable, right? Is that right? I think. Anyway, it's The Horse Will Talk. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard that? Okay. So, like, one, in terms of your leadership strategy, and this is something I'm personally working on, right? Like, I'm a get after it kind of person. Like, so you see a problem, like I want to whack that problem and fix it and solve it. Like, let's move to the solution. And so he's telling me this story, and this is something to add to your leadership toolbox. It's The Horse Will Talk, right? So it goes like this. There's a king and someone in the, like, under his reign, like a thief stole something, right? And so the thief is now being presented to the king, and he's like, okay, you're up next to probably off with your head for stealing in the kingdom. And the thief says, he knew the king had a favorite horse, and he told the king, he said, hey, would you if you can give me 1 year, I will make your favorite horse talk. So the king laughs, and it's like, no way possible you'll make my horse talk. But you know what? I'll give you exactly 1 year. And if the horse isn't talking by then, off with your head. So he just reserved himself another year of life. So when he goes back to the prison or whatever, another one of the inmates is like, are you crazy? Why would you tell him that you are going to make his horse talk? And he said, and the guy said, how are you going to make the horse talk? He said, I have no clue how I'm going to make the horse talk, but anything can happen within a year. Like, one, the king could die. I could be freed for some other reason, or I could actually make that horse talk. So the lesson in it is to sometimes be patient as a leader when you want to just jump in and fix something, or in a team, you think you have the answer. Just let it play out sometimes, and not be so quick to act on a problem. So that's The Horse Will Talk.
I love that. I'm going to definitely add it to my toolkit and take it back with me, right? It's a great reflection of the same idea, and I need really consistent reminders. So
yeah. I mean, especially if you're like a go get it, get it done, like, which I am. So it's like, that's great too, but it's like you need other tools in your toolbox as that leadership to develop. And as I'm saying that, my favorite durable skill is under collaboration, and it is, well, both team leadership and I would say team building. Those are the two that excite me the most, as well as that I am actively building and working on for myself, just as a person that that's active in a lot of different things, that has a lot of interest. I can only be in one place at a time, and I have to have great people around me, great teams, and I'm always looking for the edge in those two durable skills. Yeah.
As you say that, what I'm struck by, I know your origin story, starting your car washing business.
Right.
I was also a very young entrepreneur and headstrong and like started a marketing consultancy, which was really me in a coffee shop with a laptop, like begging people to let me do work for them. But I think like that's the difference, right? It's so ingrained of like, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it myself and put out the next problem and like jump quickly to action and just move and hustle, and realizing over time, like how much better we are together, how much stronger we are together. Sometimes other people have better ideas or insights than you do. So,
and it's okay. Like this is what I've come to the resolution, like as I've grown over time, as from that leadership standpoint, is we're only looking for the truth. Like, and it takes humility in that to say, like, I only want the truth. If I have it, awesome. If it comes from my other senior level executive person, awesome. If it comes from the lowest person in the system, it great. And honestly, the person who is usually closest to the truth is the person who's dealing with it the most actively. Not because you have the PhD or this, or you're the CEO or, the CTO or, any of those things. But if you really want the truth, you probably should get who has the most firsthand knowledge, of what's going on. So I think those are a couple of things for me. I want to go back to something. You said metacognition. Talk to me more about that particular durable skill, because I feel like a lot of the other ones, leadership, growth mindset, critical thinking, those may be a little easier for most people to understand. Talk to me more about metacognition.
of course. Yeah. Well, I think I mentioned, right? It's a very academic term.
Mm-hmm.
You will never see metacognition in a job posting. It is basically how you think about your thinking, right? The whole like when someone's like, oh, that's meta, right? It's like how you think about your thinking, which can also affect like how you think about your processes, your effectiveness, your output. And those are the sorts of things that are really important for companies. Oftentimes, when they talk about someone, having really great time management or organization, or they use a lot of different terms to reflect that idea of like efficiency and the ability to self-manage and prioritize and adapt to how the situation is changing. Right. I try and think back, I spent my college years in restaurants and bars, which I think everybody should do a service job at some point in their life. But
I was
amount
a bus boy in high school at Fridays.
exactly.
I can carry like 40 things at once.
Yeah, right. Like a million glasses all in your hands. I love that. So you think about that kind of environment and that kind of role, like metacognition is actually a huge part of what you do, because nothing ever goes to plan. And so the skill that's required in that is being able to adjust on the fly, reprioritize, remanage your time, and sort of like you have a running list of tasks in your head. And then on the fly, how do you reshuffle those tasks? And the next level is like, can you explain why you reshuffled those tasks in a certain way or combine certain tasks, right? Like the never go back to the kitchen with empty hands kind of idea. Right. But that's really at the heart of what we're talking about when we talk about that skill.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you broke that down. And as I'm over here looking at this wheel, and based on what you just said, what comes natural to me, but then what I'm working on, I'm like, this this wheel is like you should like go through and give yourself a ranking, like of like where am I at with these skills, because you, as you know, right, like in terms of trying to educate, our next generation of leaders and students, mastering these skills really will just take a person so far beyond what maybe their wildest dreams for their career or job choices. So with that said, I'm curious, what's keeping you up? What's keeping you up at night? What's on your mind in terms of the future of the work you're doing here at America Succeeds?
That is a great question. Well, first, I'll share kind of the most exciting thing that not necessarily losing sleep over, but just can't wait for it to be here. We have partnered with CompTIA, which is the IT Cybersecurity Technology Industry Association. We're bringing together a group of business leaders and doing qualitative research and a whole bunch of community feedback to try and develop a rubric, so levels of competency for someone after high school for durable skills, with the ultimate goal of creating an assessment or credential or screener. So that idea of like self-rating on a scale of 1 to 5, we're trying to take or develop sort of a tool that would let you go online and have a rating based on that kind of assessment, because we think it's really powerful. So that is the part that's really, really exciting. I think the part that keeps me up at night is just knowing still that there is such a long journey from where we started to getting that tool to what we'd ultimately like to see in the world, which is a significantly more diverse, inclusive, equitable workforce and communities. And so I'm thinking a lot, our team is thinking a lot about what do we do for the learners who have been disconnected from systems in different ways. So if you're at an institution, we can come in, there's so much research and value. Like we know what wraparound supports look like. We know how to do that well. We know how to help someone get through. That's really important. But it's really different to get someone out of the system back in. And even before the pandemic, less than 50% of our students were going on to complete a post-secondary credential. We have the lowest labor force participation that we've had since the 70s. We have a lot of apathy and confusion about how to navigate the world that we live in today. And so we're thinking a lot about like, what does it look like to truly, truly activate individuals around this goal and leverage durable skills and leverage better data transparency and knowledge and the explosion of alternative pathways and credentials and opportunities that exist to get everyone into their own meaningful, fulfilling life. And likely for a lot of people, that is going to involve some kind of job or career.
Absolutely. I like how you linked it back and personalized it to some version of happiness and fulfillment that's personal, which usually that does some work probably is tied to that. Or at least the belief of that I believe you should do work that brings you joy. You'll be more successful at it, more likely. So with all the things you just said, so how are you thinking differently about post-secondary opportunities?
Well, I can say that we're working on a report to share some more thoughtful ideas, but kind of where it's at now, the reality of it is that especially traditional four-year degrees, still have a ton of value. They are still incredibly important, but they are not the only way that someone can find themselves in that ideal place. And they haven't, frankly, done a great job of serving the majority of students historically. we're also living in a time where there's an explosion of different types of credentials or online programs, right? Like you have companies like Coursera and Udemy, like you can learn almost anything anywhere in the world as long as you have, connection to the internet. And so there's a ton of opportunity. The promise of equity is there, but we haven't really started to crack the nut on what it means to go beyond the technical and like deep down with human motivation and engagement and doing that at scale in really meaningful ways. So
Yeah, I feel
lots
like
of wicked big problems.
right, absolutely. And you're right. We are really just kind of scratching the surface of that, and I think a big shift of it also has to come from, you're starting to see it like where trends are, where the industry is accepting industry credentials over a degree from said university. Like that's fine, right? But then I think it's also the messaging has been so strong in like, oh, you go to college after high school, but college for what? Like where maybe it's rethinking that whole thing. We're getting people to accept that that's okay, or even the parents of these kids to get on board to say, like, let's find what you're good at. Let's find a pathway, a post-secondary pathway versus just assuming everyone should go to college.
Well,
Go ahead. And then I'm going to
I have a quick personal anecdote with that. So
okay.
like full disclosure, I am a college dropout.
Okay.
Went to a big state school, really floundered. I think I switched majors like 5 times in 2 years and dropped out. And my parents were devastated. Like I'm the oldest of four, that they both have master's degrees. It was always just like go to high school, go to college, probably go to grad school, and you'll be fine. And like no one ever talked to me about why I was going to college, like what jobs I might want in the future. Like that, it's not just the kids we traditionally think of. It is every student that is looking ahead at the world, and there's almost a crippling fear about like the amount of possibility and messing it up. And I ultimately did go back to school and get a degree and find my way into a job that I love today. So like happy ending, but it was a total winding journey to get here and something unexpected, and just the great benefit that we would be doing to students today individually and at like an incredibly macro scale to give them more of that while they're still in their K-12 experience, to just like let them try things on and see what the options are. Like that is so incredibly valuable. And it's not just for some kids, it's for every kid that is out there today.
All right. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. I want to push. Okay. Stephanie today, Miss Durable Skills. How would you prepare that Stephanie in middle school or high school? Like what opportunity is it that how could we have gotten you here faster? Right. Because I think that's kind of what we're saying is like more exposure to different opportunities, get out the classroom, different places, all these kinds of things. But what do you think could have been done in middle school, high school that could have got you here faster?
Frankly, I think we always try and make it too big and too complicated when we're talking about younger students. So it was simply just like exposure or touring a business that you didn't know was a business. I have had the pleasure as an adult and in this job, went to Universal Technical Institute to do a tour. And like, no one once ever, when I was in high school, was like, oh, did you know you can make 6 figures as a diesel mechanic? Did you know you only have to be trained for a year and you would get to like work with your hands all day, and then you could own a shop and you could work with these incredible global companies and do like, That was never talked about, right? And those are the sorts of things that facility was incredible. I probably would have been a terrible diesel mechanic, but like just the fact that like that wasn't presented to me as a possibility is so heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you said that the exposure, and if I extract what you said, trying to find ways for kids or students to see these different opportunities earlier and more frequently, so that they can see themselves like, oh, I love working with my hands. I love Legos. Like maybe this diesel thing could be a thing, So thank you for sharing that. Last question. This is something I asked all of the guests. What is your vision for the future of CTE, the future of career technical education?
I would love CTE to be something that every student, and I mean every student, is meaningfully exposed to. I think its connection to durable skills, which we've talked about, and to kind of career connected learning and all of these other like pieces are often so lost. I'm in rooms a lot where CTE is something that some kids get, but not every kid gets. And I think it is so critical for every kid to get exposure and have an opportunity to do CTE. And that might be in addition to AP classes or sports teams, right? But if we want whole rounded good people in the world, which I certainly want to live in a community in a world with whole rounded good people, like we need to give every student a whole rounded, rigorous, CTE inclusive experience in their education.
Wow, very well said. Thank you, Stephanie. You've shared so many great insights. I love your perspective from the macro to the micro level, from policy to the classroom. So thank you for sharing all your insights. If people want to connect with you or learn more about durable skills or the work you're doing at America Succeeds, where should they go?
Of course. Our website is americasucceeds.org. But if you really want to dig into durable skills and the data and the policy, it has its whole own website, durableskills.org. You can click your state, see what we say, and I highly recommend you check it out.
Outstanding. Thank you again for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it. Don't be selfish. Share it with a friend or a colleague, so that these insights around durable skills and the work America Succeeds is doing can move throughout our community and throughout our country. Thank you again, Stephanie, for joining us. And as I always say, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.